Welcome to Wednesday Wind Down with Dan and my friends. I'm Dan Conger, the host of the webinar and YouTube show for outdoors people that are having a hard time getting outside because of COVID-19 and having a hard time getting together with their friends to drink. So this is a great way to do it. So I'm Dan, I'm the host. Tonight I'm drinking, what have I got? I got a vanilla porter by Breckenridge Brewery.
That looks nice.
Yeah. I know I had to put it in a glass. I couldn't drink a porter out of a bottle. So, Kelly, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Kelly Mamer. I'm Dan and Sandra's very good friend and hiking partner, and excited about tonight. And I am drinking a whiskey. This particular one is a Whistle Pig Farmhouse Rye. I couldn't come up with a really smart idea as to why I picked this, so let's just say it tastes good.
Whistle Pig. Okay, cool. Sandra, introduce yourself, please.
My name is Sandra Grow, and I'm an avid hiker and friends with Dan and thankfully Kelly, and I'm having water.
Woohoo!
Sounds good. Yes. This is the first. I've been kind of not, my stomach hasn't been good for 3 weeks now, and this is like the first beer I've had in a long time. So if I get a little loopy towards the end, you guys steer me back.
Great. Yeah. We're going to blame it on the beer now.
There we go.
Okay.
So I brought Kelly and Sandra on to talk about the High Sierra Trail. And the High Sierra Trail is that, 1928, when they opened up Sequoia National Park, they extended the borders of it. And we need some way for people to get across and rangers to get across. And the High Sierra Trail was born from that. So as the three of us and Sandra's husband, Rich, and my brother, Mike, all hiked the High Sierra Trail about 5-ish years ago, something like that.
Just a couple of years ago now.
Oh, wow. It seems like forever ago. Yeah. And I won't steal any more thunder. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and Sandra. So if you feel free to share away.
All right. So I shared my screen. We put together a little PowerPoint presentation here. So this is just a quick overview. This is the first, quarter of the High Sierra Trail. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous trail. As Dan said, it basically was built and designed to cross the Sequoia from west to east, or east to west, depending on which direction you're going.
Versus north to south.
Correct.
Okay.
And so this is basically the west edge of it. Look, this is the whole canyon that you kind of walk along the edge of. They had to build the trail to kind of hug this canyon. They had to do all sorts of work. You'll see some tunnels later. They took advantage of some existing canyons, like the Kern River Canyon, which you get through, kind of curves around. Eventually, it hits a point of joins up with the JMT, not too far from Mount Whitney, and then it gets to Mount Whitney. And I guess rather than just describe that, I can. There we go. Show you the map.
Cool.
So as you can see, this is a pretty much a west to east type of thing. I suspect, I don't know what you guys think. I think most people do it from west to east in general, and end on Mount Whitney. Technically, Whitney's not really part of the High Sierra Trail, but I think people.
So is Whitney Portal technically the end?
I think I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I thought at one point that it went to Cottonwood or something, but I think it is actually Whitney Portal. So
because how interesting is that the technical end of the John Muir Trail is Mount Whitney, not Whitney Portal. So you always got to add 11 miles onto that, 221 or something like that. So how interesting. Okay.
So it's about 70 miles roughly from one end to the other. As you can see, the little dots are our campsites. We're hikers who like to, we can go quick when we need to, but we can also take our time and enjoy ourselves. And so we actually turned this into, I think, 8 nights was it that we ended
that's
up?
Right.
And we ran into a group up front of a father and daughter that were also doing 8 days, and I was like, man, they look pretty fit. I can't believe they're doing 8 days, but turned out they were doing 8 days there and back.
So they were shaming us. They were basically doing it twice and shaming us.
They were very polite about it, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
So that was a classic yo-yo, which might lead into, I don't want to steal your thunder, but it might lead into point to point. So Crescent Meadow you get to from the west side of the Sierra Nevada, and Whitney Portal you get to from the east side of the Sierra Nevada. And to drive from those point to point, it's a full day drive.
Yes.
I mean, that's a real bear of a drive. So
Yeah, it's a definite planning trip. I mean, we've done some throughs before, and of course people do throughs. We've done some point to point, but the point to point we've done like in the past were maybe 10 miles from one point to the other. This one is not that. This one we definitely had to take advantage of some angels in our lives, specifically your guys' lives. To start with, we used Sandra.
We used my daughter and her boyfriend Josh, and Heather's quite familiar with all of the hiking that we do. She's our person at home when we leave, and we need to leave information. I always leave her a map. I leave her an itinerary, and she knows what our gear looks like, and all of the particulars of what we need. And she knows how to run our house for us, and so she has always been curious, and she's known Dan for a while, and she wanted to get to know Mike and Kelly because she hears about them so much in our lives. And so these guys were just awesome, and taking time away from work and driving us to Sequoia and spending a whole day with us.
yeah,
And a night, because we went camping that night. And so we picked up our permit, and then we had some time to kill because we picked up our permit in the afternoon. And Heather was even the person that said, hey, let's go here to Crystal Cave. And so we all went to Crystal Cave, and we spent some time down there. We went back and car camped, which neither of them have car camped before. And so it was a great experience for her and for us. And then they took our rental car back and dropped it off. And they just made the whole drop-off pickup thing, the first half of it, so much easier on our lives. And we had a great time with them.
Yeah, it was nice. It was fun. The Crystal Cave is really cool. It's not even in Sequoia National Park. It's kind of like you get to it from Sequoia, but it's in this little bit of private land that's kind of run. It's a really, really cool little cave. So yeah, that was nice. That was a nice way to start. And speaking of the start, this is the basically the Crescent Meadow end of it. Kind of gives you an idea. It says 60 miles to Mount Whitney. I feel like that's not quite accurate, but whatever. I believe my Fitbit watch was told me it was further, and I'm going to go with that. So
I'm going to go with the 95 miles that told you. Yeah. Bragging rights.
So we always like that first picture, very clean, very gung-ho, ready to go. So it was the first day was, the usual kind of get going through the trees. That picture I showed before was this first couple days worth, the canyons heading east. And so pretty gentle first day. Beautiful views along because we were kind of walking along the edge of the canyon. So this is actually looking back to the west. You got Morro Rock there. Anybody's familiar with Morro Rock? That's the peak over there on the right side that you can walk up to the top and get some of the same views, but it's more fun to earn them when you're walking through the
you get a really great view from Morro Rock where they have it. They have the signs out, and they point out all the mountains, and that you'll be crossing the Great Continental Divide, which is the area that we went through. And so from Morro Rock, we can only see the first half.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a great place to kind of visit, and it's only a quarter mile up to the top.
Yeah, it's a nice little hike. And Sandra, you're too modest. Your family back in the day was very responsible for building the rails and trails up to the top of Morro Rock. So
there used to be a wooden rail that went up to the top, and they basically just went up to the top. And then in the 30s, when they were going about changing the park and trying to get a more natural look to things, my family had several members that were working up here on the weeks, and then the women would come up from the valley and spend the weekends in the park, and everybody would hang out and play in the park and then go home for the week, and the men would stay and work.
That is so cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, it's a neat family legacy. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So this first night, camping, and I was just going to show this picture because there's a bear box you can kind of see. And that's one thing about the High Sierra Trail is there are a lot of campsites with bear boxes. If you plan your way around, I think you can get from one end to the other with bear boxes. But you always want to, I don't know. I always want to be careful and assume that they're there or they're full or something hasn't happened. But they're pretty well maintained. And so in theory, this is a trail you could do by just using bear boxes if you plan your camping. So we didn't, of course. We took our cans because we did not camp. We're not typically camping at spots where other people camp if we can help it.
If I remember right, this is 9 Mile Creek, and it
Yes.
was definitely an established campsite, and which you can tell it's moderately impacted. But when you're doing a traverse like this, there's just some places where you have to stop, right? You got to you can't
water.
camp. Generally, you want water, and you need camp pads, and this was one of those few places.
Yeah.
Well,
it was actually fine. It was nicer than it looked, right? Because it was a little bit off the trail, and it was right near water, and it was a beautiful little creek. So it looks impacted, but it was actually no one else was camping there. So.
Oh, and that snake was over by your tent, Dan.
Yeah, it was a rosy boa.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah. So next day, first of many bridges. This trail has a lot of bridges that were built as it's being built. As they built this thing up the canyon. Early in the second day, we actually got some people camp. There's a campsite not far from here. This is Bear Paw Camp. This is kind of a glamping type site, right, where you can actually come in and spend. They have food here. They'll make you food. They'll have beer. It's more of a comfort camp that some people do. Or they'll do it at the end of, if they're coming the other direction, they might stay here and get themselves some nice food. It's the type of place that the first day in, it didn't really look that impressive to us. It probably looked more impressive coming the other way when you're a little more tired and stinky. But speaking of bridges, this was just an example. We were talking about they built this back in the 30s. I think they built it partly. There's a really good history video. If you go onto YouTube and just search High Sierra Trail history, you'll find there's like a 30-minute video. The large part of this was built during the Depression as part of Roosevelt's jobs creation program there. So you can see this was one of the bridges. It collapsed sometime. Pretty sure no one was on it, but it's still there as evidence to show you what happens when things aren't built.
I think it was destroyed when there was snowfall, and they were having snowfall.
Yeah, I think it was an avalanche or something like
there
that.
were people hurt, but it was right after they got it in, and they had to do it again.
Yeah. So this was their second night. This is Hamilton Lake, and I took a few pictures here. We loved Hamilton Lake. It's the most picturesque place in the world to me. I just love it. It's interesting because it rained a lot there. It was kind of cloudy and not miserable. It was beautiful but rainy, and you could see all the waterfalls on the rocks around. I think when we got there was like one waterfall, that big one near the back, and at one point we counted 14 or 15 waterfalls from all the rain that was coming down. It was pretty cool. But yeah, this one had a lot more people, right? This was a little more of it had a lot of campers. We found a reasonably good spot. Someone had given us a clue. We kind of got away from everybody else up on a little bit of a plateau. But you can see just by looking at the tents how wet and rainy it was. What's funny is there's 3 tents. Mike has his own tent, and he found a spot a little higher that he was very proud of because it was kind of by himself. And he's like, this is great. You guys are stuck down there together. I've got this little spot. But his spot looked like that after about.
God, I haven't seen that picture. That is awesome.
It looked like that after a couple hours, and by the end he was camping with us, but he was okay. He was smiling, but
tried to move to the penthouse.
That was an awesome bathtub. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely was pretty cool. Yeah, so he had to.
So the note to new backpackers: check the drainage on your camp pad before you set up your tent.
Yes, or it'll look like that.
Yes, right.
That was pretty funny. But anyways, one more Hamilton picture. There's Sandra down there. I could put 1,000 pictures. I tell you, this is, especially with the colors and the light and everything. Yeah. We had some beautiful clouds that night, once it cleared up, and I just love that spot. So
it was a beautiful night.
Yeah. Next day, we kind of hit this is probably the most interesting construction piece of this whole puzzle. They basically, I think at one point they built a bridge across this ravine. I think we saw some evidence.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Or a rope or like something, but they eventually tunneled through. As you can see, they actually cut right through, and it's impressive tunnel. It's actually my dog would like to go and
we're real
hello to some. Sorry about that. Anyway, and the interesting thing about this is usually covered in ice and snow. Like it's very common until late in the year that they have this ice bridge. At some point, you can go over it if you want, but if you can see, this is basically what it looks like looking down to I think the edge of Hamilton way down there, and it's 1,000+ feet down, and it's a dangerous, scary kind of thing to cross. We were going to do it the year before when we did that Mineral King. Right. But remember, we were looking every day to see, because at one point it becomes a tunnel that you can actually go under, and then it melts too much and then it collapses. Then you kind of got to walk across ice, and so you really got to plan for this. So it's one of those things. If you're doing the High Sierra Trail, you'll definitely read about it, but pay attention to this little area, especially early in the year.
Yeah, so that the previous year we thought we were going to do a loop out of Mineral King and come up the other direction on this one and cross this, and it turned out it was a good call. But yeah, up until the week before we left, it was totally sketch. And then just before we left, it was great. We were online forums finding some information about it. So
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of good information on the High Sierra Trail online and existing conditions. If you're ever thinking of doing it, make sure if you're on Facebook, go find the High Sierra Trail Facebook group. I mean, there's constantly good information on there. So
I'm going to interject that we're at the halfway point. So this is a good reminder for Kelly, but it's also, if you've got some questions for Sandra and Kelly, please put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be sure and catch them towards the end.
We're definitely going slow, but that's okay. This is such a beautiful, we might have to come back and finish the second half of the trail on a different. So this is Precipice Lake, by the way. It's one of those spots that I think there's one campsite if you're lucky enough to be there. It is gorgeous, just beautiful, up very close to Cahuilla Gap, which is where we are when we take this picture. And now you're looking down the Big Arroyo Canyon. So this is after you've crossed the Continental Divide, and now you're heading down quite a ways. We did that, and we camped that night. This is, I was going to take this out. This was the theme of the trip for me, by the way, was my pad failed. It failed every night. We'd find holes, we'd put it in water, we had patched 3 holes, put it back in, find 3 more holes. Turns out that, I don't know, something happened with the pad. So every night I would wake up every 2 hours and try and blow it up, and then hope to fall asleep before it deflated.
So by the way, XPED, if you're listening, you need to hook Kelly up.
Yeah, they were nice. I sent it to them, and they actually they figured there was nothing wrong with it that they couldn't fix, but then they blew the baffles out trying to blow it up, so they sent me a new one, which, by the way, works fine. So
they legitimately helped him out.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you guys were all like giving me every spare pad or every little sit pad you had to sleep on, and yeah, it helped. So
yeah,
it worked. Whatever.
We did feel bad for you when you had.
You can survive anything, including a pad that loses air. So. So this is, now we're kind of back above Big Arroyo Canyon. I left this picture in because this just shows, again, you can see way in the distance is the Continental Divide. That we literally crossed that the day before. And looking over to the left is Mineral King, which we talked about in a previous video if you happen to see it. Again, there's none of these things, they all look far. Everything looks like a long way, like when you're a kid in the car and it's like, I can't believe how far those mountains are. But when you get out there, it doesn't take you long to get from point A to point B.
A day or 2 walk.
Yeah. This was only an afternoon, really.
Yeah, right. Found some rangers doing some trail maintenance in this area. They had a little rock fall that they were taking care of. We ended up off the trail. So this is actually Moraine Lake. It's not really on the High Sierra Trail. You can do a little 1.5 mile loop off of it, but we wanted to go here because it kind of worked out with our camping plan. Gorgeous lake. We had a nice night. I love this picture. Everybody just with the sunset, and we had the beautiful my spirit mountain back there, Cahuilla. There's Red Cahuilla and Queen Cahuilla, or Cahuilla Queen, and yeah, it was you could see this thing in every direction. When you get around on the other side in Kern Valley, you can see her. She's everywhere. So this was the night also that we all got woke up by the loud rattling noise that we were trying to figure out what it was. And
ghost.
Yeah, ghosts. It was ghosts, but it was also horses, as it turned out, because we ran into the guy who'd lost his horses the next morning. It's like, have you seen 8 random horses running around? We're like,
no.
Kind of hope you have a little more.
I don't pay attention to these guys that are carrying my packs, though. But no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So next day and I love this picture. For some reason, I just think it's hilarious. Like we saw a meadow and we're like, all right, what do we do now?
Look at it.
Yes. It was
what's next?
I need that picture, Kelly, because I think I want to have it here in the house.
Yeah, isn't that great? I love that picture. Yeah, we're all just looking.
Great one of us all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we're into the Kern River Valley. Now, Kern River Valley, this is kind of looking south. I like this picture because it's this river of trees that goes forever. The Kern River is in the middle of that. It's a real big drop. After coming out of Big Arroyo, you kind of come up and then you drop into the Kern River Canyon. So this is, when you get to the bottom of this, it's about the lowest point, I think, in the entire
It is, absolutely.
Hike. But then you work your way upriver, and yeah, this one, we saw it and we were like, geez, how are we going to cross that? But they were nice enough to put a big bridge on there for us. So we kind of got across. And
that's one of the benefits of highly traveled trails is there's usually some pretty good bridges. So if you need to cross a river, it's not nearly as scary as you might.
Well, especially one like this, right? We crossed a couple the next day that were a little more, they weren't hard, but they're a little wider. We had to do you definitely got to do some thinking. But yeah, this one, we camped right near this that night. That was one of my favorite campsites. In fact, before you get there, you get to go to the hot springs. They actually have a hot spring out there in Kern River. I can't remember, what's the name? Is it
Kern Hot Springs?
Is it just Kern Hot Springs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That fits.
Now,
and you can, it's like a little bathtub. You can get in there, and it's a place to kind of warm up, and which I did.
Warm up in the heat of the day. That's
that did.
Well, but it was nice. It felt clean. It felt like I was not at all stinky after this, even though I was still very, very stinky after this. So.
That's because you put your clothes back on.
Yeah, no comments from anybody, please. So, but yeah, this was that nice campsite I really liked, and I had to put this picture in only because this was the last time I got to use my umbrella before I lost it the next day. If anybody's paying attention to any of these videos, you'll notice that I lose something every flipping year, and this year it happened to be my almost brand new umbrella that I dropped in one of the creek crossings the next day. And I only know I dropped it there because we had other hikers that said, "Oh yeah, we saw an umbrella down in the creek, but we didn't want to try and go get it, so we left it there." So, yeah, it was not there.
Leave no trace, Kelly. Leave no trace.
Yeah, I know. I leave trace. I'm LT.
That was last week.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't you ever watch the show?
So then you get to Junction Meadow. This is where you start after the long north through the Kern. This is kind of that last point where you start heading towards the John Muir Trail, and you kind of get away from the nice, slightly more quiet, I think, a little more isolated, and you hit the JMT freeway here in a obviously 4.3 miles. But Colby Pass is a way. Some people that don't do the whole High Sierra Trail, you can actually cut and go over that pass and head back to Sequoia where you start. Some people do that. We actually met. We'd run into these three ladies and this is kind of a good lesson on your hiking group if you're part of a group or just or a participant, because when you're part of a group you make group decisions. When you're just a participant, you end up like this one lady. She was with her friend, but then there was another lady who was kind of in charge, and their whole plan was to go back over Colby Pass, and the rangers had said this is not really a good year for that. There's some bad conditions. And she didn't really want to go. She wanted to figure something else out. And they told her they were right at this point. And we only know this because we ran into her later. They left her. They left her sitting at this point and said, if you don't want to come with us, it's your decision, but we're going. And she didn't want to go, and they left her. Can you imagine a group of three women hiking, and they left one of them behind? Now, fortunately for her, the next people that came along were like, they took her all the way to Mount Whitney. They ended up arranging for her to get home. I mean, it ended well, but I just... And honestly, we met these three ladies, and the two that left her, I can't say I was that surprised in the end.
Right.
Those
we kept running into them, and she was getting left behind as they were walking. So like we would see her, and she would be walking, and she wasn't even that slow, but
No.
they were just like marching on without her and expecting her to keep up.
Yeah.
They weren't on the same trip.
No. That's a lesson, really. And we talk about that, Dan. You've mentioned that many times. You know, when you're in a group, you make group decisions, right? And I can't imagine doing it any other way. But
yeah.
So this was the next night, and it was Sandra's husband Rich's birthday. So we had, how we've talked about, we always try and do a little bit of a dress up. This year it was just a birthday party, so we carried in birthday supplies. He did not pin the mustache on the Ranger while it was attached to his pad, thank goodness, because he would have been in the same boat as I would have been. I was, but he did pretty good. I think he attached to his nose, so he got pretty close.
What was the mustache, Sandra?
You know what? It dried out.
No, what was it?
Oh, it was Mike took pine needles, and he did two little branches of pine needles and then taped them together, and that was his little mustache.
Yeah,
nice.
Worked out perfectly.
Great.
And
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, this was a little earlier, so we managed to be there on Rich's birthday. And of course, he got the nice big balloon, which meant, of course, they had to carry the big balloon. And not only that, he lost the balloon, and we made him chase up the hill to go get the balloon and attach it back.
Wearing his full pack.
Yeah. Wearing a full pack. We gave him support by like jeering him all the way up the hill as he went and ran and got this stupid thing.
We're the best friends ever.
Right. That's why we're here.
Yes.
Exactly.
Love you, Rich.
So then, by this time, that was Wallace Creek that we had spent that night at. By now, we're on the JMT. We're getting, of course, closer to Whitney. We're up. You can see the eastern edge of the Sierras there. There's some beautiful meadows. Of course, because we're close to the Sierras and close to Whitney, we're now into Wagbag territory. Sandra, is your favorite part Wagbag territory?
Can we just call it what it is? It's a bag where you carry out your own poop, which... Okay, let's face the alternative is to
No, it's not an alternative. That's just the thing. It's
Let's
not.
just move on from this slide.
Okay.
Let's just move on.
You just mature and you carry the bag and you quit your bitching. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it's for 2 days. So the problem is you use it more than once. And then, that second time is not pleasant. But
That's on you.
yeah. Guitar Lake. This is Guitar Lake. A lot of people have heard of Guitar Lake. This is kind of on the east side. This is the last real spot before you decide to summit Whitney. Again, you can see very exposed. We were up on a plateau. There was lots of people closer down by the lake, but we had a good spot. We were fine. It was a weird weather. We had some crazy rains and cold came in for about 2 hours, but we had to work through a few conditions, but we survived it. And
that's a really great place because we really wanted to be further down. If Kelly, if you remember, we got up there and the other two were the other three were behind us, and so we dropped packs and we walked all the way down to the lake and a little bit beyond, trying to get us closer. And this was really the only place that could handle all 5 of us. And then when we all 5 get together, we're still in weather, and we kind of suffered there for probably 45 minutes or more, trying to deal with the rain, decide what we're going to do. Are we really going to set up? Okay, is this the place we're going to do it? And by the time we got set up, we had a little bit of hypothermia sitting in.
Yeah.
And everybody
in fact,
was
I forgot. Yeah, we ended up all setting up together, didn't we? We would all do one tent together and just get it going, and then do the next tent together.
Yeah, everybody helped everybody get the tents done because our hands weren't working. We weren't really, I think probably Dan was the most miserable. And
you know what? This is going to be a perfect episode for Shit Went Wrong.
But you couldn't even concentrate at one point.
No, absolutely not.
That was what was really alarming to me, was this wait, Dan doesn't know what's happening. And
hypothermia is insidious, and I firsthand, yeah.
It was time. Get out the water. Let's get.
But the photo that you had, Kelly, it was gorgeous. After it was done hailing and after it was done being 40, 35 degrees, it was a gorgeous day. I remember after I came out of my tent, I was actually too hot coming out.
Yeah, once the clouds moved off, it did get hot, and all of our gear could dry before nightfall. But for about 45 minutes, we were pretty miserable.
Yes, we were. Sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty there. So, yes, that's all very, very well said. One thing I was just going to point out, because people always say, why is it called Guitar Lake? So I like this picture because it kind of gives you an idea. Oh, now it's not moving. Hold on, there we go. There's a good shot of why it's called Guitar Lake. It looks like a guitar. Okay. And as you climb towards Whitney, it looks even more like a guitar. And as you keep climbing towards Whitney, it's way down there, but it looks more like a guitar. So this was the last big day, and this was the long one, because it's from Guitar Lake up to Whitney is 3,500. No, I don't know. It's
serious
quite a ways off, right? It's
serious climb.
Yeah. So, but the good thing about Whitney, it's if anybody's been there, and a lot of you have, I'm sure, it's you get to this point, you see that hut, and you're there, and that was our big moment. It was pretty cool, and the coolest part about Mount Whitney was this, and do you want to tell the story, Sandra, or do you want me to?
I will. Dan and Mike have both previously been up to Whitney, and you, Rich, and I had not been up there. So Dan was kind enough to order these medallions for us ahead of time and carry them. I have to say the most important part was that he carried these medallions for us. And
all week long.
These silver ones, yeah. And he didn't tell us. We didn't know, of course.
No. And then Mike made these bags, and they're double-sided, the paper, but he sewed them, and he put the little ties in it, and Dan put the medallion in it. And it has John Muir's saying on it, and then it has another, I think it's part of a letter that he wrote to his sister on the backside. And he gave them to us as we were at the top of... Right
at the benchmark, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just really touching because, not only did Dan, well, first, it's most important, Dan carried something for us, which that's saying a lot.
Right.
And then he just gave us a very sweet and touching memento to where we knew, something legit happened to us when we were up there, and it was really sweet, and I enjoyed it, and I have mine hanging in my office.
I have mine in my office as well. Yes, it was very touching. That was, of course, Dad did make us carry them down, but
Oh yeah,
hell yeah.
He's not going to carry things forever.
No, it was a beautiful thing, and yeah, it was probably that kind of summarized this whole trip, and that was one of the most touching things. So yes, it's an excellent memento, and we really appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. That day we were heading back down to this is the famous 99 switchbacks that if you're coming up the I guess the front side, they would say, or from the east approach, this is where you come up, and we passed trail camp. We were going to stay at trail camp, but that's a ghetto, and we end up going outpost camp for our last little night, and a few Boy Scouts bitching at us for taking their favorite hammock spot later.
We don't like Boy Scouts, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, we were done, and now we're down in town, all cleaned up, and Mike's happy, and Rich is happy, and we're all happy, and that was our trip.
Awesome. Cool. I got just a couple minutes for a few questions or a few comments. So Doug asked, is Guitar Lake polluted or is it dirty? I don't remember it being particularly dirty, but I do remember finding an inlet, a little creek inlet into Guitar and pulling our water from there.
Yeah.
We were quite a ways from Guitar where we pulled our water. We found a nice one. So we didn't really get anything from
direct
Guitar.
To the lake, yeah. But in a dry year, those little streams might not be there. Those feeder streams, it might be just
right.
There's a tarn above Guitar, so yeah.
Okay.
And then let's see. Doug corrected you. It's not the Continental Divide; it's the Sierra Divide. So.
All right.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, Doug's the one that'll correct us on that. Good on him. And let's see if there's anything else that's.
Nikki was asking what time of year we took the trip. In our case, it was the last week.
Last week of July.
Yeah.
Yeah. We generally aim for end of July, beginning of August. It does two things. For me, the strategy is twofold. Is you're less likely to have the thunderstorms that are very prevalent in June. Mm-hmm. And it's as late as we can go in the season before my brother starts school up again. So right. July, early
Makes sense.
That's about as late as we can go. Let's see. And then I like Dave's comment because Guitar Lake is where someone offered me $100 for my umbrella due to the rains. What a brilliant idea. Could you go? Now, I've heard stories of my cousins going up to the mountains and selling cigarettes to hikers.
What's wrong with your cousins?
I'll have to get that at the next family reunion and see how true that is. So, yes.
Any more questions? I think that might have been.
Yeah, let's see. So if you wanted to give, Sandra, we'll start with you first. If you wanted to give 2 pieces of advice to someone that might hike the High Sierra Trail, what might they be?
I would say the most important thing is the buy-in factor. The buy-in factor with the people that you're hiking, so that you are hiking together, so you don't have this situation happening like what happened with that poor woman. And so we just don't have that problem with us. And then the second thing is the buy-in factor with your family, because for us, like, we do have a solid buy-in with Heather and Josh. Like, they're willing to do the trip we had planned this year. They want to do it next year. They want to be a team member with us without the backpacking.
Yeah. And plus, Dan's wife Jill was the one that picked us up, right? So we didn't mention that, but we also had buy-in to pick us up at the other end and come all the way up and get us.
Yeah.
Which again is not. It's 5 hours from San Diego. It's nothing.
Out of the two, who had to pay more? I think it was probably Jill, because she picked us up dirty.
Yeah, that's fair.
She definitely got the short end of the stick.
If you had 2 tips for someone that would be hiking the High Sierra Trail, what might they be?
Let's see. One would be, I think just be prepared for multiple different things. The days you're doing a lot of up and down, so don't. It's not obviously flat, but you're going up and down a lot of different things. So be prepared for a lot of different environments, including rain. It's almost impossible not to get rain on this type of trip when you're crossing all the way across the divides, whatever divides they are, Doug. And the second tip I would say is just remember every bit of it, because it's worth, the memories are worth a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree. I'm wistful. I would love to do that again at some point. It's not an easy hike, but I'd love to do it again. So
yeah,
fantastic. Well, I appreciate you both sharing our experience, because I was along on it too. Next week, we're going to get a different perspective. We're going to get a perspective from a new backpacker, which has been a while for us, right? So I've got some good questions set up for her. Recently out of WBC, and she's been doing some additional backpacking. So tune in next week, and we'll be talking about maybe some things to remind us that have been around for a while, that have been hiking for a while, but also for people that are thinking about backpacking or are just recently started backpacking and they've been on one or two backpacking trips. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week.
cool.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again. It was good seeing everybody. We'll see you around. Take care now.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Bye.